So now we're going to go ahead and I'll let Bobby take it away. He's going to be talking how you can save time and effort using the auto-serialize function in Flexi. I'm sure you all know that Bobby's an expert at this. He knows everything there is to know about the software. So I'm going to let him tell you about auto-serializing. And then after that presentation, we'll take some time out for any of your questions. So just go ahead and type them into the chat window, and Bobby will get those answered. All right, Bobby, take it away.
All right, Stuart, thanks for your time. I appreciate you going through that quick introduction. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day. As always, I know that it's not always easy to take time out of the business day to sit and try to learn something in the software. So hopefully we'll be able to show you a few things that you will find beneficial and shave a minute or two off of your design time each business day or with each file that you work with, which is just going to translate into some savings of money or more productive time for your employees. So basically what we're going to be going through today is going through and looking through the auto-serialize functions of the software. So from here, most of you've probably actually worked with or actually played with the auto-serialize capabilities of the Flexi software. But what we're going to do is learn how to automate the process of serializing text objects for jobs such as uniforms, placards, addresses, QR codes, as well as a few other things. But there's a lot of information here. This shouldn't take too awful long, but it is something that once you actually go through this webinar, I really encourage each and everybody to take a few minutes, play with this, because there are some intricacies to this that will really kind of foul up your jobs if you don't set up the file properly to start with. So speaking of a few of those really important details, the data file that you're actually going to be working with, if you're working with a data file, so if your customer actually has uniforms or they have, placards, addresses, or anything like that, they need to provide you with some sort of a list of everything that needs to be within that file, such as a number, last name, a team number, team name, or something along that lines. If they don't, or if they just give you the good old handwritten version of that, you're going to need to input that information either into an Excel file or into a text file. So best practice and easiest, if you have Microsoft Excel, is to actually open up that software and then actually plug everything in. I personally like to actually include the first line where you actually have the heading of each, the file header or the column header for each one of those columns. That basically just helps you organize, and it will also help you in a few minutes create the file properly in order to guarantee proper import of this data. Once you actually have this information into the Excel file, you're going to export or save a copy of this data as a text file, but in different versions of Excel, there are different types of text files that you can actually select or save as. We require that this be a tab delimited file format. So if you don't have Microsoft Excel, it's not a problem. You can actually open up WordPad or Notepad, type in your first column, hit your tab key, create your second column, hit your tab key, and go on. Hit enter to create your second line. Then simply save that file as a TXT file, and you'll be able to use that as your serialization information. The most important thing about setting up your file correctly is you have to set up, when you're creating your text, for example, the number, the last name, the team name, if they're supposed to be centered and so forth like that, you have to create your original template file first, and it has to be exact. If you don't do it correctly there, it will import your data, but it may not line up properly. So we'll go through and show you a couple of things, because this will actually show you a few things within the text function that you're going to need to know about in order to make sure that, for example, long names actually get squashed or compressed into a certain width of area, but not actually compress text that actually is smaller. So along with this auto-serialization, there's all kinds of uses that you can work with. Of course, apparel. We have customers that actually use this even for banners, for example. So if you have team names like roster banners for recreational baseball, football, whatever team, softball, and so forth, We have some customers using this for business card layout. So example, if you actually create a business card, that company actually brings in 8 or 10 employees, you can create the card and then simply auto-serialize the company or the person's name, their role, or for example, their cell phone, their phone number, extension, email address, those types of things as well. But of course, we have customers using them for parking permits, architectural signage, product labeling, event tickets, and the list kind of goes on. I would like you all to sit and think about any additional fields or any additional uses that you might have for this software. I'd love to get feedback. If you've got something that's not on this list, please shoot me over an email. At the end of this presentation, you'll actually see my email address, and I'd always like to actually just get a little bit of input so I can actually go through and learn a little bit from you all as well. So with that, here's our basic contact information. So our website address. We also have a list of our inside sales and support phone numbers that these may be important for you. If you've purchased your Flexi software from an authorized SAI reseller, I would encourage you to contact them for any of your sales and support questions first, as the relationship that you have and that you continue to build with that reseller is just vital to the success of not only us, but your reseller as well as you as a company as well. So once again, my name is Bobby Fawson. Here is my email address. Feel free to shoot me any emails, and no, I will not sing for anybody. So from here, what we'll do is we'll go in and bring up the FlexiSign software. And I've actually created a couple of different files or layouts just to help get us started. So starting at the very, very basics of the auto serialization, I'm going to zoom in just to this area, and we're going to take this number, for example. So in this example, we're going to take 1,000, and we're going to create a series of 25 consecutive numbers. So 1,000 to 1,024, 1,025, whatever it may be. So from here, all I did is clicked on my text tool, single click, and typed out the 1,000. So from there, I can go up to the Arrange menu and go down to Auto-Serialize. This is your serialization layout, where this is asking you how many copies that you want. So this actually creates additional copies on top of the one that you have here. So it keeps the original as well. So if you want 25, you're going to start here in a second with 1001, and that'll keep this here. So you have numbers all the way down to 1025. But here you also have an option to where you can change the number of columns. So right now, if I choose 1, it will create all 25 consecutive numbers in one straight column. But if I convert this to 2, it'll split that column in half and bring it over, or 3, or however many that I want. So we'll just leave it as 1 for now. And you can also control the actual spacing in between each row. So if you want a gap in between each of the serialized numbers, all you have to do is select this. Now, one thing that we've actually done is within the Design Central, it's blacked out right now because I'm actually in the serialization layout. Once you have this number set, if you want to change that value, continue on, you can change it in Design Central a little bit later. So within the serialization layout window, you're going to select on the right-hand side the text that it recognizes or that you selected. So you have to select it here in order for it to make any change or any additional serialized numbers or indications here whatsoever. So when I select this, I'm going to hit Next, and then I'm going to click on Auto Serialize. Now it's going to ask me if I want to use numeric or characters, which in this case it's numeric, but I want to start with 1001 because I already have 1000. And then I'm going to increment each one of the serialized numbers by 1. So when I click OK, it pre-populates all of these, and you can scroll down and kind of look through this list and see that it's automatically serialized these numbers down. So whenever I click Finish, it's literally going to just basically spit these out. And there's a 1-inch gap in between each one of them after the original that we created. So as we scroll down and look, you'll see it goes all the way down to 1025. Now, with anything in Flexi, of course, you can select this. And as you see now in Design Central, I can go to my serialization option here. I can change the number of columns, and I can control the spacing in between. So I can increase or decrease this gap. When I hit my checkbox, it'll actually make that change effective. So until I break this apart, we still have the option of changing these values. Okay? So that's pretty basic, that's pretty straightforward, but you'll be able to use this for a lot of different functions, whether it be event tickets and things like that, of course, permit or parking permits and so forth. So what we'll do is we'll go on to the next one. I'm going to actually delete this out so we can get rid of that. And I'm going to zoom over. We're going to skip this one for a second, and we're going to bring over to this one. I had a recent customer actually ask me about trade show placards, like what you would see at SGI, ISA, or NBM sign shows. Before they actually set up the booths, these are markers for all of the trade show exhibitors to actually indicate who's at what booth. So what we need is a list of all of our booth information. So what I've done is I've actually gone through and created this rectangle. Okay, and we'll just go ahead and we'll actually recreate this real quick so we can actually go through the whole process. So I'm going to create a rectangle. And with this, I actually have it set here to do an inner border. So then from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select or go ahead and type in right here, booth number. All right, I'm going to single click over here and type in company. And now if you notice, I actually have a QR code and I also have a serial or a barcode. You can change those or edit those, in which all we have to do is for one is I'll type in QR code. And again, you'll edit this here in a little bit, or the auto-serialization file will actually edit this for you. So I'm going to go to the text menu, go to QR code, and go text to QR code, and I'm going to move it where I want. I'll worry about alignment here in just a minute. So then from here, we'll create the barcode. So I'm just going to type in 1 through 7. All right. And then we'll convert that also to a barcode. And then I can move and place that wherever I want to from there. So now it's a matter of centering different things and so forth to make them look a little bit cleaner. So we'll bring these up first. And I'm going to use the shortcut keys. Does anybody remember the shortcut keys to align all three of these objects to the top of each other? Well, several different ways of doing it. The shortcut key is going to be Control 8, but you can also right click and you can go to Align and then go to Top, so that would do it as well. Now, here's what's really, really important whenever you're doing these layout files. All right, I'm going to actually bring up the booth number file. Let's see here, that's this one here. And let me bring it over so you can see it. All right, so you see the actual columns, QR code, company, number, and barcode. All right, so from here, it recognizes, or it's going to recognize each individual text as a without spaces. It'll break this actually apart at this point, but number will be a selectable field, booth, company, and so forth. But the important thing to remember is the order in which these columns are from A through D are really important, because as we import these in, it's going to import the QR code first. What it's going to do is, as you remember, I typed in booth number first. It's going to put the QR code where booth number is. So I need to make sure that this file is in, these columns are in the same order in which I created this. So I'm going to actually recreate very quickly this, which I believe, let's just try this. I'm going to reorder these a little bit. So I know that I did the number first. So I'm going to right and I'm going to cut. I'm going to click here, right click and insert. So now I know numbers first. Then I did company next. So I'm going to cut that one. I'll bring that one in. Then I did the QR code, which is there, and then I did the barcode last. So now I'm just going to save this file. This is actually saved as a text file. But what we're going to do is I'll do File, and I'm going to Save As. And notice here I have Text Tab Delimited. That's the important piece. So from here, we'll go ahead and hit Save. And yeah, we'll replace it. So that text file is now ready and in place. So the next important thing is, if this, for example, if I want this word company or the company name, if I want it to be somewhat centered, I have to go over here and choose the center option. that will center it along this space. If I want it to start here all the time, which I do in this case, I'm going to hit my left justification here, and then same thing with pretty much the number. So now what I can do is select these, all of these, go up to arrange, go to auto serialize, and now I need to choose which options here that I want to replace. Okay, I'm just going to change these to 10, for example. I can't remember how many I had in there. We'll leave the 1-inch gap, one column, and I know we have booth number, and I'm holding the shift or control key, so we know we have number. Actually, we do not want booth because booth stays the same. We only want to change the number. Then company, QR code, and then the number itself. So from here, we want to browse to actually locate my placard file. So when I hit open, I'm going to click on ignore first row in file. If you remember, in this file, that first row has just basically the column headings. So I don't need to bring those in. So we'll ignore that and then click on next. So now you look and see that it has the number, the company information, the QR code, which in this case is a link to their website, and then the actual QR or the serial number for the barcode. So from here, we'll just go ahead and click finish, and you'll notice it basically pops everything in place. And you notice how everything on the left-hand side for a company name, they're all static or they're all consistent because I chose left justify. If I chose center, it would pretty much center all of these together. So it's really a choice of how you really want to do it at that point. But each one of these, as I look at the serial number, there's 68, 69, 7, and so forth. So again, it pulled all of that data directly from that data file and created a serialized list of our placards for the upcoming sign show. So QR codes, serial or the barcodes, text, and so forth can all be changed, can all be applied. Some of you may still actually work with some engraving, different types, or even outsource it to where you get engraving done, and you might need to have Braille. We do have that option as well, and it will serialize Braille as well because it is a text function. So essentially what we've done is I did pretty much the same thing as the previous, is I typed everything in, and notice again, in order to keep these centered, in this, for example, if I look at name, how do we know every name that we type in is not going to be more than like 5 characters? Let's say it's actually going to be 8 or 10 characters long, which if that's the case, it's going to stretch over the borders of my design. So within the text function here in justification on the far right hand side, I can single click here, and this is really where it's important to set up your template file first. You want to change the option here from character and word spacing to just character width in this case. So when you do that, you can check box this fit to width. I happen to know that the inside of this box from one side to the other is about a little bit more than 6 inches. So if I set the maximum width to be 6 inches and then check the box for compression only, what it's going to do is it will not change any characteristic or width of letters if that size is less than the 6 inches, the total size of the word. If it actually comes out to be 7 or 8 inches, it compresses it to fit at a maximum of 6 inches. So let's actually show you how that works. When I click on OK here, matter of fact, we'll go on to the Braille first, but just keep in mind that we've actually chosen to compress that option here. The number I'm not worried about in this case because it's only going to be 3 or 4 numbers and so forth. But what I did for this, for the Braille, is, let me convert it back, is I just typed in the word Braille. The reason I typed in Braille is because my Braille function here just happens to be, let me maximize that. It is one of the column headers. It's really important that these holders, or they're placeholders, they have to be named a specific way. You can change it, but just make sure that if you're changing it, that whenever you select this object for Braille, you go into text, and we're going to convert this to Braille. Make sure that when you go to edit here, it's actually edited and it has the word Braille in it. That's the only way that it's going to know to actually search and find that information from that data file. So from there, you can change it if it's Braille, or Braille 1, Braille 2, different options and so forth there. But essentially, I've centered it up. So I've chosen and taken all three of these and basically centered these together. So we can align, we can center these. And now it's a matter of selecting this piece and going back to Arrange and Auto-Serialize, using the file, the Braille holder that we actually chose. So we would go to my Braille, and I'm going to change the name, the number, and the Braille, and we'll use one column, and we'll hit Next here. And again, I'm choosing to ignore my first row. And here we go. So here's the name. So that's the actual room name, for example. So office, manager, sales, support, accounting. Obviously, accounting is not going to fit in that area. But the way we have it set up originally, it should compress it to still fit in there. So we have the room number. The Braille number should be exactly the same as the room number in this example. So when I click on Finish here, you'll notice as we scroll down, each number changes from 100, 102, so forth. But if you look at the actual name, you'll see accounting has been actually compressed. So once again, you've got to set up your original file properly in order for it to work. If you don't, here's what's going to happen. So if I just change this to, for example, let's just uncheck this, and we'll do to character and word, which is the default setting, and let's just change it to center. Let's take these and center those up really at that point. All right, so if we select this now, Arrange, Auto-Serialize, select all of these. We're using the same file. So there we are. Accounting doesn't fit. So you've got to actually set up your file properly first. And this is extremely frustrating when you actually have a long list of names or numbers and things, and then all of a sudden just 2 out of every one of those 500 or whatever it is are overextending here, because then you have to actually break this apart. You're going to squash that, or you really need to go back, change your original piece here, and then actually reinsert all of your auto-serialization. That is a quicker and easier way to go about it. All right, so hopefully that answers a few questions for you. Now, let's actually take this to be just a tad bit more, not really complicated, but a little bit, somewhat real life of what some of you all are using as well. So what I've done here is I took a bitmap of a t-shirt. This is not real size or scale, of course, but what I've done is gone in and I actually typed in last name, number. I created a shadow with an outline as well as a gap in between the two, and then actually just a team name. So what I really wanted to do to begin with, in order to try to make sure that these all fit and so forth, I'll make a copy, is, for example, the number. I would just come in here and type in 12, and you notice how it's centered. Same thing with last name. So if I were to type in a long name, you see how it's actually compressing? That's because I chose the right setting over here the first time and set a compression value of 4.5 inches wide and tell it to compress with character width only. You can actually, if you choose character size, this is a common mistake, it will actually not only change the width, but it also changes the height proportionately. So you want to keep all of these as consistent as possible. So height is going to be important here. So same thing with team, I would actually type something in and make sure that it all fits. So now that I know that my sizes are correct and so forth, I can then come back, select this whole piece, okay, all of it, go back to Arrange, Auto-Serialize, select all the things that are going to be changed, and I have to browse to a new file. This I actually call jerseys, and hit open. And if anybody needs copy of these files, as in the file that I'm working with, as well as the text delimited files or tab delimited files, feel free to email me. I'll be more than happy to send copies of these to you. So again, I'm ignoring the first row, and we're going to go ahead and hit next. So to verify, all of my numbers is there, last names, and again, Washington, it's going to be kind of long, so we want to make sure that it compresses, and then of course the team name. So we'll hit finish. So as we scroll down through this list, you should see that all of these are serialized properly, they're spaced properly, and they're compressed when needed. but they're not compressed when it's not needed. Okay, that's the important part of this whole process. And again, the whole key to it is setting up your original file properly and taking the time to do it. If you do not see it set correctly, see how it also shrunk the website address to kind of fit within that one area? If you do not set it properly, it's going to cause you more headache, more time, more pain. Get your file set up right and then go from there, and you should be good to go. So what I will do, this was pretty short, but again, one of those really what I would consider to be important portions of the Flexi software. I'll go ahead and open this up for any questions. But like I said, if you all need copies of the files that we've worked with today, feel free to send me an email. I'd be more than happy to save these and send them over so you can actually play with these and have something to work with without having to spend a whole lot of time trying to create your own. All right, Stuart?
Okay, thank you so much, Bobby. So it looks like we actually already do have one question here from Ryan, and if anyone else has questions, feel free to go ahead and type those into the chat window right now, and we'll get to those. So Ryan asked, is there any way to change which direction the values populate? For example, this populates the opposite direction as a step and repeat function.
No, there is not now in the opposite direction. Let me see if I see what you're referring to. So if we are actually go into arrange serialize here, choose my values, and let's just set it up to do 2 columns, for example. Let me make sure I have the right one. Okay. So what I think you're asking is once I hit finish is how do they actually, if I were to set this to be 2 columns, how do they populate over on the left side, for example? Is that what you're referring to, Ryan? If so, we might be able to plug in a negative value possibly. Once it's finished, where you could populate them backwards. But again, it's not populating, you're basically rearranging them. Does that help answer the question?
Yeah, he says, great, thanks.
Okay, good. So yeah, just
Thanks,
always keep
Bobby.
in mind that with the Design Central, you always have the option of going negative on some of these numbers. So you can always space negatively and move them over.
Okay, can you go vertical?
Vertical, as in go upwards. I believe, let me actually scoot all of these over. Let me see here, let me scoot this over. So what we'll do is do the exact same thing. I'm just going to change my gap in between here, which really in this case, this is the gap. You see down here at the bottom left, this is the gap in between each object. But I can also go from top to bottom. So if we were to choose this one, for example, right now from the bottom of this one to the bottom of this one looks like 6 inches, but let's just try to set it at, again, a -20 to match what we were doing earlier, for example, and just see what it does. Let's take it to -12. That way we have a little bit closer. So as you can see here, it does look like it is actually going in the opposite direction. So now instead of populating from here going to the right and down, we're going to the left and up just by changing the negative values. Did that take care of that one?
Perfect. Yep. Thank you, Bobby.
Okay.
And then had a request for your email address again, so I've typed it into the chat window there, but it's bobbyf@thinksci.com. And then we've got a question here from Sandra. Said, okay, I would be printing running race bibs. When would I add cut lines? On the template?
Yes. Yeah, essentially that's what you're going to be doing. That's a very good question. So for example, let's just take over here. So if we were to take the number, for example, and we wanted to do a contour cut essentially at that point, that effect is still going to apply. So now when I select this and we go to Arrange Auto-Serialize, we choose our values and the correct file. I'm sorry, let me zoom back in. So as you can see, each one of those have the contour cut applied. So each one as we go down. So again, the template is the template. If you want to make a change after you've done the auto serialize, you really might as well delete what you've done, go back to your template and create that again, because now we actually have our contour cut applied to it.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, and Michael would like to know if there is a maximum number of objects that you can serialize in one step.
Not that I have run across so far. I would be very careful if you have a lot of gradient fills, or if you have a bitmap image behind your object, masked object, or anything like that, just based on, the speed of the processor as well as any limitations on the software itself. But just, to give you an example, it's really not limited that I'm aware of. So we could actually take this. Oh, let me just show you this also. I'll answer that question, but when I'm starting a new section here, if I want to auto serialize just this one number, you notice how it remembers the file path from the previous version or from the previous one. You need to delete these out and uncheck this here. So now I have the option, I can uncheck that here. Now I have the option of telling it number of copies. So if I want 25,000 copies and I want, let's just say 500 rows, goodness, I hope it doesn't crash it, but we'll just see what happens. I mean, that's what we're here for. So we're selecting this object. We click on next. Oh, there we go. There's our answer. 10,000 is our limit. So now we actually set that to 10,000. We hit next. I'm going to click on auto serialize one by one and OK, finish. It's going to chew on that for a minute, and there's our 10,000 numbers. And there they are. Feel free to go ahead and cut those and weed those out whenever you're ready.
Yeah, may take a minute.
Just a little bit. Just rip, weed it, and go. No big deal.
Okay, well, I want to say thank you to everyone for attending our webinar today. And thank you especially to you, Bobby, for going through that, for answering those questions and taking the time out of your day to help us with those. And now, all of you, you do have Bobby's email, so if you have any specific commentary or if you have any questions or suggestions for future topics, feel free to either type them in the chat window or send Bobby an email. Our next webinar will be where we'll be talking about how to eliminate proofing errors with the artwork approval tool. So you can go ahead and register for that. We'll be sending out an email next month with the registration link, so you can look forward to that. And as always, we will be posting this recording up on our YouTube channel, so if you missed part of it or if anyone else you know that you think would benefit from it, we'll be sending you an email with the YouTube recording link.
And I wanted to say thanks for everybody attending. Once again, I do appreciate your all's time. And if there's anything else that I or anyone at SAI can do to help, feel free to contact us at your convenience.
Okay, we'll see you guys next month.